Good morning, everybody. Today, I am super excited because I get a lot of people asking about powders and how to get them to stay on a nail for the whole duration of a service fill. So I want to talk about the different ways that you can use the powder dusts. One of the most common is to put it over a no cleanse top coat. You do have to cure that in the light for about 10 to 15 seconds before you rub on the dust. So that'll be the first technique. Right now, what I have on this nail sample is the Ahoy There Matey from the Nautical collection from Light Elegance. This is their buttercream collections, which I absolutely love. So let's dive in. First off, I'm using the Light Elegance Top Gloss No Cleanse. So we're gonna put a nice thin coat of that on the first nail. And then we're going to cure that in the light for 10 to 15 seconds. Now with this technique, you can use either a silicone brush or a eyeshadow application brush. Either or work great, whatever your preference is. So in the light, 10 seconds. So I have these two here. And there we go, 10 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and use the silicone one. And what I have for dusts is going to be this one here. It has a nice blue pearlescent effect to it. You can see it's turning purpley blue. There we go. And I have another one that's also a red tint, which I'll do on another nail. That is to you and your own preference with which color you want to put over your primary. You can put these over black as well. So what I'm doing is I am tapping this into the sealant to make sure I get a nice full coverage before I wipe it and kind of scrub it into the nail. You do want to make sure you don't use too much, and that's why I find the dabbing it into the color works great. So now that I have it on the whole nail, I'm going to give it a little scrubbing to get that in. Now this technique was the most common. I do find it looks fine when your client leaves, but then when they come back, it rubs off. It's not my favorite technique to use when you have a paying client. So you can already see it kind of rubs off with that technique. And same thing with the application brush. What tends to happen is it rubs off your coating. Just to show you here, if you rub it too much, it'll eventually kind of flake off of the nail. But it still works, it's still pretty. And then you would go ahead and seal it with your sealant. I'm going to use the Super Shiny. But it does give it a beautiful effect. So that is your first option, is to rub it in. Certain companies also have chrome top coats, which do work as well instead of your no cleanse top coat. Same technique for application. You cure it for 10 to 15 seconds in the light, and then you rub in your powder effects. So while that's curing, the next one that you can do is to mix the powder dust with your color. So I'm going to take that same color, Ahoy There Matey. I don't need that much because I'm just doing one nail. So I'm going to put it on my palette here. And I'm going to add a little bit of that same dust. I don't need that much, just a little speckle. And I don't know if you can see this. Yes, you can in the light. And you just mix it in. Now I'm using a silicone mat. If you have little plastic jars, you can definitely use your little plastic jars. If they're well sealed, Then that way you can reuse the color or prep it in advance before your client comes. So now, just using my application brush, I'm going to scoop up the color. I don't know if you can see this in the light. It already has a little bit of a shimmer to it, kind of pinky tint. And I'm just going to brush that over. Now with this technique, you do not have to have a base coat of your color, but if you're going to do 2 coats, it is a lot faster to just use your base color first and then the special effects mixed in with the color. So you can see it still has a very nice effect. I find it's just a lot better full coverage and a technique that will last longer than the first rub on with the no cleanse coat. But you can definitely see already the difference. This one's definitely a lot more pigmented just without moving it, whereas the second one, mixing it in with the color, gives it a nice effect when you move the fingernail. So I'm going to put that in the light, cure that while I clean up my little station for my next favorite technique to do. And that is to mix the powder in with your sealant. So in that case, you would already have your base color on the nail, and you're going to mix it in with the sealant on your little rubber mat or in a little jar. So I'm going to use the Super Shiny from Light Elegance, and I only need 1 nail worth, so I don't need too much sealant. So I'm going to put a little dab, and I'm going to take a little scoop of my same bluish purple powder. Just a little tiny scoop here. I still don't need that much. These are very pigmented when you mix them in, so you really don't need to use that much dust. Now I'm going to take my little mixing palette here, a little spatula, mix the color in, and you can already see on the camera that this is already turning into a nice effect. This is going to be a lot more vibrant, and this is, I find, a lot more versatile to put over whatever color you have on the nails. So I'm going to pick that up and brush it on. Okay, so to show you the difference. So mixing it in with the color is the effect, moving your finger. Mixing it in with the sealant gives you that same bright effect as wiping it in over a no cleanse top coat, but it will last a lot longer mixing it in with your sealant. So let's put that in the light. And the next thing I want to show is how your color really varies on the powder color that you choose. So I did a bluish purple iridescent. There's also a red. That's this one here, so it would be a lot more subtle over top of a red color. I want it to pop, and I want to show you how you can really change a color. So I'm going to grab my gold dust, and I am going to mix this in with the sealant because that is my favorite technique for really popping and giving an effect. And it will really show you the difference in colors. So let's grab a little bit of this gold. I feel like a little scientist mixing my little colors up. Guess it would be more of a chemist, wouldn't it? Let's get our chemistry on. So I'm just scooping all of the dust towards the middle, kind of like you're baking a cake. You're mixing your flour in. There we go. And let's pick that up on our brush. You can already see the yellowish gold tint to it. A nice shimmer, if I can get that camera to pick it up. There we go. And let's put that on the last nail. Now, when you pick a vibrant pigment like this that is very different than your color, it is absolutely stunning to do nail art with this instead. So what you would do is take your striper brush or whatever nail art brush you're using. I got a couple fuzzies on there. I don't know if you can see that. That's what I get for getting the colors prepped last night. Daytime fuzzies floating around. So I'm not going to cure this one because I want to show you what it would be like to do nail art on it. So I'm going to wipe it before I show you. Just get the camera here to zoom in. There we go. So it completely changes the color. And that's where playing with your color ahead of time comes in handy if you're going to use a tint that does not match or become as iridescent, so more transparent, to go over whatever color you're using. So that would be the gold, and you can see how that's completely different, but still very beautiful. So I'm going to wipe that, and I will show you what I would do with that color. So using the stripy brush, I like the Light Elegance brushes. They are my favorite. So I'm going to roll that into my sealant. And this is how you give nail art a very subtle look for someone that doesn't want it to pop too much. So I'm just going to do a flower here. Just a quick one. Now you can either outline it, or you can make the middle of your flower the effects, or whatever design you're doing. You can do stripes, but I just want to show you how it can really stand out doing it this way with a different pigment. Just to give you an idea there. You can see that. There we go. So it just makes it stand out a little more, but it's very subtle. So depending on how you move it, you don't quite see it until they move their hand. So it gives it a nice little effect for someone that doesn't want something to stand out too much. And then you cure that and you seal it. And those are the different ways you can use your little pigment powders. And you can do the same thing with chrome powders. It's just chrome powders are a lot more pigmented. They're not as pearlescent or translucent. So I would recommend using the chrome pigment powders over the same color. But you can definitely play around with them and see if you can come up with different mixtures that make the colors stand out very beautifully. So I will cure these with the top coat, the super shiny top coat, and I will meet you back and show you the final result. All right, so there we have it for the final result. So we had the one that we mixed in over top of the No Cleanse top coat and gave it a little rub. This one was the color mixed in with the pigment, sealant mixed with the pigment, and then the sealant mixed with the pigment, nail art over top of your primary color. So I hope this video helped you. One more little tip that I wanted to mention is if you are doing the rub-in technique over the No Cleanse top coat, it can get messy around the fingernail, so the cuticle area. So what I recommend after you rub that in is to just use a fluffy brush, either a fan brush or one of these nice little fluffy ones, and just give it a little fluff around the cuticle area just to get that remaining powder that you may have gotten around the skin. And that'll just clean up around the cuticle area before you do the final top coat over top. So there you go. I hope you like this video. Please leave a comment if you've played around with the dusts and your colors, and let me know different combinations that you've come up with, and maybe post a picture if you can so that we can all get some ideas with beautiful combinations. All right, guys, thanks for watching.